The wind howled endlessly across the Mongolian steppe, sweeping over a world with no walls, no roads, and no mercy. In this vast ocean of grass, survival was the only law that mattered. Long before the world would tremble at his name, a boy was born into this unforgiving land around the year 1162. His name was Temujin. At first, there was nothing extraordinary about him. He was not born inside a palace. He did not inherit an empire. He was simply the son of a tribal chief trying to survive among countless rival clans. Yet from the moment he entered the world, stories surrounded him. Legend claimed he was born clutching a blood clot in his fist, a sign that destiny had marked him for war. Whether true or not, one thing was certain. His life would become a storm unlike anything the world had ever seen. Temujin's childhood shattered when he was only 9 years old. His father, Yasuji, was poisoned by enemies during a diplomatic journey. Overnight, everything changed. The tribe that once followed his family abandoned them without hesitation. Loyalty vanished. Friends disappeared. Power evaporated. Temujin, his mother, and his siblings were cast into the wilderness with almost nothing. The steppe showed no sympathy. Food became scarce. Hunger became a constant companion. Some days the family survived on wild roots. Other days, they hunted small animals just to avoid starvation. Every sunrise was a battle. Every sunset was a victory. While other children learned games, Temujin learned how quickly the world could take everything away. But hardship did not unite the family. It pushed them toward desperation. Competition for food became deadly. Tensions rose until they erupted into violence. In one of the most shocking moments of his youth, Temujin killed his older half-brother during a conflict over leadership and survival. It was a brutal act, but it revealed something important. The boy was already learning a lesson that would define his future. In the steppe, weakness invited destruction. As the years passed, new dangers emerged. Rival clans viewed Temujin as a threat before he had any power at all. Eventually, enemies captured him and forced him into slavery. A wooden collar locked around his neck as he was displayed like property. For many people, this would have been the end of the story. Another forgotten prisoner swallowed by history. But Temujin refused to accept defeat. One night, under the cover of darkness, he escaped. Hunted across the open plains, he hid in rivers and tall grass while his captors searched for him. Every heartbeat carried the possibility of death. Yet somehow he survived. A sympathetic family secretly sheltered him, risking their own lives to protect a fugitive. It was a moment Temujin would never forget. The experience changed him forever. He learned that trust was more valuable than gold. He learned that loyalty earned through respect could be stronger than loyalty demanded by fear. Most importantly, he learned that survival depended on building alliances rather than relying on birthright. These lessons would become the foundation of everything he created later. As Temujin entered adulthood, he began gathering followers. Not because he possessed wealth, not because he inherited power. People followed him because they recognized something unusual. He remembered those who helped him. He rewarded loyalty. He shared hardships with his companions. In a world ruled by ancient bloodlines, he offered something different. The chance for capable individuals to rise through merit. Slowly, a small group formed around him. Then another. Then another. The lonely boy abandoned by his tribe was becoming a leader. Yet the Mongolian steppe remained fractured. Dozens of clans fought endless wars against one another. Betrayals, raids, and revenge killings consumed the land. Every tribe dreamed of dominance, but none could achieve it. The chaos had lasted for generations. Temujin looked across this divided world and saw something nobody else could see. He did not dream of leading a tribe. He dreamed of uniting them all. And soon, the endless grasslands of Mongolia would witness the rise of a force that would change the fate of continents. The orphan who had once struggled to find food was about to begin a journey toward becoming the most feared conqueror in human history. The name Genghis Khan did not exist yet, but the legend had already begun. The dream of unity sounded impossible. For centuries, the tribes of the Mongolian steppe had lived in constant conflict. Alliances were temporary. Friendships lasted only until power shifted. One season's ally could become the next season's enemy. Blood feuds stretched across generations, and trust was often more dangerous than a drawn sword. Yet Temujin was determined to break this cycle. His first major challenge came from a former ally. Jamuka, once his closest friend, had grown into a powerful rival. The two had sworn brotherhood during their youth, sharing dreams beneath the endless sky of the steppe. But ambition transformed friendship into competition. Both men wanted to lead the Mongol tribes, and the steppe had room for only one supreme leader. Their conflict became more than a struggle for power. It became a clash between two visions of leadership. Jamuka represented the traditional aristocracy. Noble birth determined status. Ancient bloodlines determined authority. Temujin believed something radically different. He promoted warriors based on ability, loyalty, and achievement rather than family heritage. To many common herdsmen and fighters, this idea was revolutionary. As word spread, followers flocked to his banner. Men who had spent their entire lives beneath the shadow of powerful clans suddenly saw an opportunity. Under Temujin, courage mattered more than ancestry. Skill mattered more than privilege. Every victory attracted new supporters. Every new supporter strengthened his growing army. The wars that followed were brutal. Across the vast grasslands, mounted warriors thundered into battle beneath clouds of dust. Arrows darkened the sky. Tribal leaders fought desperately to preserve their independence. Some resisted out of pride. Others feared losing centuries of tradition. But Temujin advanced relentlessly. His genius was not merely his ability to fight. It was his ability to organize. He restructured his forces into disciplined military units, breaking apart tribal loyalties and replacing them with loyalty to the army itself. Warriors from different clans served side by side. Old rivalries were deliberately mixed together. The system created something the steppe had rarely seen before: unity. The results were devastating. Enemy tribes that relied on old customs found themselves facing a force unlike anything they had encountered. Temujin's soldiers moved faster, communicated better, and obeyed commands with remarkable precision. Every campaign sharpened their effectiveness. Every victory increased their confidence. One by one, rival leaders fell. Some joined him willingly. Others were defeated and absorbed into his growing coalition. A few refused to surrender and paid the ultimate price. Years of conflict transformed the political landscape of Mongolia. The fragmented world of competing tribes slowly disappeared as Temujin consolidated power. What had once seemed impossible was becoming reality. Then came the final confrontation with Jamuka. The former blood brothers stood on opposite sides of history. Their struggle had lasted for years, shaping the destiny of the steppe itself. Eventually, Jamuka's support collapsed. Betrayed by his own followers, he was delivered into Temujin's hands. The moment carried enormous significance. Temujin could have tortured him. He could have displayed him as a warning. He could have turned his defeat into a spectacle. Instead, according to historical accounts, he granted Jamuka a relatively honorable death. The friendship they once shared had long vanished, but traces of respect remained. It was the end of an era. With his greatest rival gone, no force remained capable of challenging his authority. In 1206, tribal leaders gathered for a grand assembly known as a Kurultai. Across the steppe, representatives arrived to witness a moment that would reshape world history. There, Temujin received a new title, Genghis Khan. The exact meaning remains debated by historians, but its significance was unmistakable. He was no longer merely a tribal chief. He was recognized as the supreme ruler of a united Mongol nation. The impossible had happened. The scattered tribes of Mongolia had become a single political and military force. For the first time, countless warriors who once fought each other now fought together under one banner. The unity Genghis Khan created generated an unprecedented concentration of power. The steppe had become a giant bow drawn tight, waiting for release. And Genghis Khan had no intention of keeping that power confined to Mongolia. Beyond the grasslands lay wealthy kingdoms, mighty cities, and ancient empires that believed themselves secure behind walls of stone. They had never heard the thunder of the Mongol army. Soon they would. And when they did, the world would discover that the unification of the Mongols was not the end of Genghis Khan's story. It was only the beginning. Once the Mongol tribes were united, Genghis Khan faced a new challenge: peace. For most rulers, peace was the ultimate goal. For Genghis Khan, it was a dangerous cause. Thousands of warriors had been forged through years of conflict. Their loyalty was strong, but their culture revolved around conquest, opportunity, and survival. To keep the Mongol nation united, he needed a new horizon. He found it beyond the borders of Mongolia. To the south stood the powerful Jin dynasty, a wealthy empire ruling northern China. Massive cities, fortified walls, thriving trade routes, and millions of subjects made it appear invincible. Compared to the nomadic horsemen of the steppe, the Jin possessed greater resources, larger populations, and centuries of established power. But Genghis Khan saw weaknesses where others saw strength. His armies moved with astonishing speed. Every warrior was an expert horseman capable of traveling enormous distances in a matter of days. They carried multiple horses, allowing them to maintain momentum that conventional armies could not match. While many kingdoms depended on slow supply lines, the Mongols adapted to the land itself. Then came the tactics. The Mongols mastered deception as a weapon. They staged false retreats, luring enemies into pursuit before suddenly turning around and surrounding them. They attacked from unexpected directions. They coordinated movements across vast distances with remarkable precision. Opponents often believed they were fighting one army when several others were already moving into position. The results shocked entire nations. Cities that expected long campaigns found Mongol forces appearing at their gates with terrifying speed. Defenders struggled to react. Generals accustomed to traditional warfare faced an enemy that ignored familiar rules. Victory followed victory, but the campaign against the Jin was only the beginning. Far to the west, another event would unleash one of the most famous military campaigns in history. At first, Genghis Khan sought trade with the powerful Khwarezmian Empire, a vast state stretching across Central Asia. Merchants were sent westward carrying valuable goods and messages of diplomacy. Instead of welcoming them, local authorities accused the merchants of espionage and executed them. The insult was severe. Genghis Khan demanded justice. The Khwarezmian ruler responded by rejecting his demands and reportedly humiliating his envoys. It was a catastrophic mistake. What followed became one of history's most devastating retaliations. In 1219, the Mongol armies surged westward. They crossed deserts. They crossed mountains. They crossed distances that many believed impossible for a military force to sustain. One by one, major cities fell before them. The ancient city of Bokhara was overwhelmed. Samarkand, one of the greatest centers of culture and commerce in the region, was conquered. Fortresses thought to be impregnable collapsed under relentless pressure. Entire populations watched in horror as the Mongol war machine advanced deeper into their world. Fear spread faster than the armies themselves. Refugees carried stories from city to city. Rumors grew into legends. Some accounts exaggerated the destruction, while others failed to capture its full scale. Regardless, the psychological effect was immense. Many communities surrendered before a battle even began, hoping to avoid the consequences of resistance. And often, Genghis Khan encouraged that fear. Reputation became a strategic weapon. If one city's resistance led to catastrophe, neighboring cities would think twice before fighting. The Mongols understood that terror could achieve victories without drawing a bow. Yet conquest alone does not explain their success. The Mongols were also remarkably adaptable. They recruited engineers, administrators, craftsmen, and specialists from conquered territories. Knowledge flowed into the empire from every direction. Siege technology improved. Communication networks expanded. The army became stronger with every campaign. By the early 1220s, the world had changed dramatically. The Mongols now controlled territories stretching across enormous distances. Trade routes that had once passed through competing kingdoms increasingly fell under a single authority. Kingdoms that had existed for centuries were erased or transformed within a matter of years. The impossible had become reality once again. The orphan who had hunted for survival on the Mongolian steppe now commanded the largest continuous land conquest campaign the world had ever witnessed. But despite his victories, Genghis Khan was not immortal. Time was advancing. His empire was growing faster than any ruler could personally control. And beyond every conquered horizon waited new challenges that even the great Khan could not escape. The greatest warrior of the age was approaching the final chapter of his life. Yet his story was far from over. By the mid-1220s, Genghis Khan stood at the center of a world transformed by his ambition. The empire he had built stretched across deserts, mountains, forests, and vast grasslands. Messages traveled through territories larger than anything the Mongols could have imagined a generation earlier. Kingdoms that once dismissed the nomads of the steppe now measured every decision against the possibility of a Mongol invasion. Yet even the most powerful conqueror could not outrun time. Genghis Khan was growing older. Decades of warfare had hardened him, but age was beginning to leave its mark. Still, retirement was never an option. The empire remained in motion, and its ruler continued to lead campaigns across distant frontiers. Every new victory expanded Mongol influence, but every expansion also created new enemies. One of the final major challenges came from the Western Xia Kingdom in northwestern China. Years earlier, Western Xia had submitted to Mongol authority. However, when called upon to support later military campaigns, its rulers failed to provide the assistance Genghis Khan expected. To him, this was not merely disobedience. It was betrayal. The response was swift. In 1226, Mongol armies launched a massive campaign against Western Xia. Cities were besieged. Defenses were shattered. Resistance was crushed with the same ruthless efficiency that had become synonymous with Mongol warfare. But during this campaign, something happened. The exact details remain one of history's enduring mysteries. Different sources tell different stories. Some claim Genghis Khan suffered injuries after falling from a horse. Others suggest illness weakened him during the expedition. Certain accounts written long after his death even include dramatic legends involving assassinations or hidden incidents. Historians continue to debate the truth because reliable evidence is limited. What is known is simple. In 1227, Genghis Khan died. The man who had reshaped continents was gone. The news was so significant that extraordinary measures were reportedly taken to keep it secret until military objectives were completed. The Mongol leadership understood the danger. Revealing the death of the empire's founder at the wrong moment could encourage rebellion, resistance, and political instability. So the campaigns continued. Orders were obeyed. Victories were achieved. And for a time, much of the world remained unaware that the architect of the Mongol Empire had already passed away. His burial became another mystery. Unlike many rulers who built grand tombs or monumental pyramids, Genghis Khan's final resting place has never been conclusively identified. Legends claim that those involved in the funeral procession concealed the location with extraordinary secrecy. Some stories suggest rivers were diverted. Others describe remote mountain regions chosen to hide the grave forever. Whether these tales are true or not, the result remains the same. More than 7 centuries later, the tomb of Genghis Khan has never been definitively found. It is a fitting end for a figure who often seemed larger than life. The conqueror disappeared into history just as mysteriously as he had emerged from it. Yet death did not stop the Mongol Empire. In many ways, it accelerated. Before his passing, Genghis Khan had established systems designed to outlive him. Command structures, military organization, communication networks, and succession plans allowed the empire to continue functioning after his death. His sons and descendants inherited not a fragile kingdom, but a machine built for expansion. Soon, Mongol armies would push deeper into China. They would ride into the Middle East. They would thunder across Eastern Europe. Entire generations would grow up fearing the arrival of horsemen carrying the banner of the Great Khan. The empire's greatest territorial expansion would actually occur after its founder was gone. That alone reveals the scale of what Genghis Khan created. Most conquerors leave behind victories. Genghis Khan left behind momentum, a force so powerful that it continued reshaping the world long after his final breath. But conquest is only one measure of a legacy. The true question is not how much land he captured. The true question is how he changed history itself. And the answer would reach far beyond the battlefield. When people hear the name Genghis Khan, they often imagine only one thing: conquest, burning cities, charging horsemen, endless wars across distant horizons. And there is truth in that image. The campaigns launched by Genghis Khan and his successors caused immense destruction. Countless lives were lost as kingdoms collapsed beneath the advance of the Mongol Empire. Entire regions experienced devastation on a scale that shocked contemporaries and shaped historical memory for centuries. But history is rarely simple. The legacy of Genghis Khan extends far beyond the battlefield. At its height, the Mongol Empire became the largest contiguous land empire in human history. Territories stretching from East Asia to Eastern Europe were connected under a single political framework. For the first time, enormous portions of Eurasia became linked through networks that allowed people, goods, technologies, and ideas to travel with unprecedented speed. Trade flourished. Merchants crossed thousands of kilometers through routes protected by Mongol authority. Goods from China could move westward more efficiently than before. Scientific knowledge, engineering techniques, artistic influences, and cultural traditions traveled alongside commercial exchanges. What historians often call the Pax Mongolica emerged from this environment. For all the violence involved in creating the empire, its existence also produced periods of remarkable connectivity. The world became smaller. Distant civilizations that once knew little about one another found themselves increasingly connected through commerce and communication. The Mongols also demonstrated a level of pragmatism unusual for many empires of the era. They frequently incorporated skilled individuals regardless of ethnicity, language, or origin. Engineers from one region might serve alongside administrators from another. Physicians, scholars, craftsmen, and military specialists were often valued for their abilities rather than their backgrounds. This approach strengthened the empire. It transformed conquest into a system capable of governing vast territories populated by diverse peoples. Even the Mongol postal network became legendary. Relay stations stretched across enormous distances, allowing messages to move with astonishing speed for the time. Information traveled faster. Orders reached distant commanders more efficiently. The empire functioned through organization as much as through military power. And yet, perhaps the most fascinating part of Genghis Khan's story is where he began. Not as a king, not as an emperor, not as the heir to a great civilization. He began as an abandoned child, struggling to survive on the windswept steppe. His father died when he was young. His tribe rejected him. He experienced hunger, captivity, betrayal, and constant danger. By every conventional standard, he should have disappeared into history unnoticed. Instead, he built one of the most influential empires the world has ever seen. That transformation is what continues to captivate historians today. Some view him as a brilliant military strategist. Others see him as a ruthless conqueror responsible for unimaginable suffering. Many acknowledge both perspectives at once. The truth is that Genghis Khan cannot be reduced to a single label. He was a product of his world, but he also reshaped that world more dramatically than almost anyone else in history. His influence reached across continents. His descendants ruled vast territories for generations. His campaigns altered political borders, trade systems, military doctrine, and cultural interactions on a scale few individuals have ever matched. More than 800 years later, his name remains instantly recognizable across the globe. That alone is extraordinary. Empires have risen and fallen. Kings have been forgotten. Cities have vanished beneath sand and stone. Yet the story of the boy named Temujin still endures. From the lonely grasslands of Mongolia emerged a leader who united warring tribes, shattered powerful empires, connected distant civilizations, and permanently altered the course of human history. The wind still moves across the Mongolian steppe just as it did centuries ago. But now, whenever history remembers those endless plains, it remembers the rider who emerged from them. The orphan, the conqueror, the great Khan, Genghis Khan,